are Teams, Slack, and Zoom for video chat to keep up the communication with your team. Other tools for project management or tracking are tools called Monday.com. Rike is another good one. And this is helpful for your managers to keep oversight over a large team remotely, but it also keeps your staff, up to speed with all the tasks and duties that they need to do. So again, these are things that can help your business now with everybody working remote, but it is definitely something you can benefit from in the future. The last one I want to mention around staff is around the morale and the culture of your business. A lot of people have struggled to be able to keep up that communication and keep a fun environment. It's Christmas time. We're heading into that period where everybody's would be normally planning a Christmas party. How do you do that? So one of the companies that we work with had a great idea where they're actually going to host a cocktail party over Teams. They're hiring a bartender, a professional bartender, to teach everybody how to make cool cocktails. And they're sending everything to people's houses, including some appetizers and stuff like that, to just create a fun, easy environment and teach, their staff something new. So give some thought to how you can do things creatively, where you can leverage technology to maintain a fun, supportive, and productive work environment. I assure you, your staff will thank you for it. The next one is business assets. So looking at the capabilities and capacities of your staff. Now that with COVID, your business has likely changed, you might need to leverage different skills. So the things that an employee was doing on a day-to-day basis pre-COVID might not be something that you need right now. And a lot of people have a lot of skills to bring to the table, and you might not even be aware of them. So even having that conversation and opening up that door of what they're willing to do and what they're capable of. People have skills in coding and creative writing and all of these different things that they might not necessarily do when they come to their job on a day-to-day basis, but could definitely help you right now when you need to be adaptable. So learning about your staff and leveraging that. The other thing to look at is around the physical assets. So your equipment, your office space, maybe your warehouse. How can you leverage these assets to help drive new revenue? So an example of this is, with service vans, when COVID hit, plumbers and electricians, they weren't able to go to people's homes to do what they normally do. So those service vans were actually used for Spud.ca, who had a huge demand in grocery service deliveries. They were able to leverage that, use those service vans to deliver grocery services. So again, it created a new revenue stream, it's serving the customer, and it's something that has a huge benefit for both parties. So getting creative about how you can leverage those assets is a great way to tackle COVID. So the next one is process. Now that you've gone through an assessment of your customers, partners, staff, business assets, it's likely that your processes might have changed. You've had to shift things around. So this is a great opportunity to look at what you can implement from a technology standpoint to help your business. So an example of this would be a retail store owner who normally how they do business is their customers come into their store and they sell and interact with those people. Well, now that might not be able to happen. So they need to move to an online platform. They need e-commerce. So they need to think about all of the processes that need to take place, whether that's the internal stuff for their company and how they do that with inventory management and handling their staff, to how their customers are now experiencing that online service. And the one thing I want to note here is that, yes, there is a need for this stuff and we need to move quickly, but it's also critically important that you take the time to follow a process that will help you long-term. Sometimes there's a need to, or a motivation to move so quickly that you end up implementing something that's not going to be good for your business or creates a really poor customer experience. And you run the risk of implementing something that's not quite right and then the customer having a poor experience and then leaving. So remember when I talked about customers right at the beginning here, about this being a tremendous opportunity for brand loyalty and customer loyalty, we want to make sure that whatever you're going to implement will actually support your customers' needs effectively. So it's very important that you're actually taking the time to do that. So it's just something to keep in mind. So the last one is technology. So assessing your business and doing a tech scan of all the technology that you have right now, and how can you leverage some of that technology? Are there tweaks and upgrades that you can make to allow it to help your business right now? If that's not the case, if you can't do that, then it might be time for you to adopt a new technology. And a lot of companies, when they think about adopting a new technology, it can be a little bit intimidating, and that's totally fair. Sometimes there's just so many different technologies out there, you don't know which one to pick. How do you know what to really ask of a vendor, and how do you hold them accountable to that? Sometimes internal resources are a challenge when it comes to project managing, which is a very critical piece to implementing a technology, having somebody who's going to actually project manage it and the vendor. Sometimes you don't have those internal resources. And oftentimes you don't have clarity around how your systems work together. So if there's integrations that need to happen to allow that experience to work really smoothly, having an understanding of that stuff can sometimes be intimidating. But if you follow a process that we're going to walk through on the next slides, it actually makes it so much easier, and it will reduce headaches. From our experience, it's reduced failure rates, the cost of tech. It's just allowed people to implement a successful project and benefit from it long term. So I'm going to walk through that process with you right now. So similar to the Demi cycle, we've broken technology adoption into 4 steps: learn, plan, prepare, and implement. So the first one is learn. So take the time to learn what you actually need for your business. Talk to your staff, talk to your customers, talk to your partners about what it is that you really need, and establish those goals. What do you want from this piece of technology? What are you trying to achieve? And identify those success metrics. So when it comes to strategic alignment, does this line up with your strategic vision for your business? Generally, a company will have a vision for 3 to 5 years. Does this line up if you're going to be implementing a larger piece of technology? What are you trying to achieve? Who are the people that will benefit from it? Building out a technology roadmap is the next step, where you actually look at the different technologies you have and what you want to implement long-term to achieve your strategic goals. And does this piece of technology that you're about to implement line up with that? Asking those questions. Then you've got your success planning. And the success plan is really, again, just determining those metrics and getting it down on paper, which is a really important one. It's great to talk about it, but write them down so it's something that you have as a resource that you can look back on and hold yourself accountable to. And the last one here in this step is the current state. So what is existing in your business right now? Ask yourself the question of, like, where are there gaps? What's not working for us? What reports do we really use on a daily basis? And what reports would be really helpful? What are the skills and knowledge and roles that we would need if we do implement this technology? And what do we have available right now? Asking yourself those questions is really critical. Then we move on to the planning stage. So mapping out exactly what it is that you need and what you don't. Going through the process design of the future state. So we just went through the current state of what the business is right now, what you have right now. What do you ideally want? So when you implement this technology, what would be ideally what comes out of it? What does success look like? And really getting clear on that and making sure that that's clear on all levels of the organization. So not just the executives that might say, well, I want these specific reports. It's all the way down to the field level of how people are going to be using it and what they really need to do their jobs effectively. Then you move on to data preparation. And this is a big one because data is really what allows people to make critical business decisions. So when you're thinking about what this system is going to do for you, it's really important that it's giving you the data, the information, the business intelligence that you need to run your business effectively. So if you're going to implement a new technology, you want to think about what kind of data do I need on a daily basis and how is it going to give it to me? And how does it allow me to hit my long-term and short-term strategic goals? And then the technology selection. So after you've done all that, you're going to be looking for vendors that can give you this piece of technology. So now you've gone through this whole process, you're going to be able to articulate that to vendors, which is why these steps are so important. You've identified what your current state is. You've identified what your future state, what you want that to be. And so you know specifically what you want from that system. And when you start going through the demos with vendors, you can speak intelligently and ask them questions about what it is their technology does versus them telling you. And that's a big one. You want to be asking the questions. You're paying for this piece of technology. You want to make sure it serves you. So doing those steps ahead of time and feeling confident, you know exactly what you want. And then you can vet the vendors a lot easier. And my suggestion here, this is a really important step. So my suggestion is that, you know, sometimes technologies just show up. You know, you find out about a new technology and you just kind of jump into it. Take the time to look at a number of different vendors and ask the questions so that you're really confident in who it is you're selecting. The next one is prepare. So like in life, selecting the right partner is critically important to your success and your happiness. You do not want to be working with somebody that you don't trust for months and months and months, especially when you're paying them lots of money and the technology that you're about to implement will have a huge impact on your business. So it's really important to pick the right vendor, the right partner. And so you want to be able to negotiate that contract. You want to make sure that you're covered and that everything that you need is in there and that you're very clear on what it is. Those requirements are built out in that contract and the expectations are laid out. And one critical one that we find that gets missed is around language, specifically speaking to overages and change orders. So if you're in the midst of negotiating a vendor contract, you really want to focus on the language and how those people are going to be handling overages and change orders, because that can totally derail your implementation project. The other one is around, the next step is project and vendor management. So who's going to be accountable for actually project managing the project and managing the vendor? So making sure that the scope is clear, the schedule is laid out, and it meets your timelines. Who's overseeing the costs and the quality of the development, and identifying risks, which is a big one, because sometimes mid-project there can be risks, and you want to be able to identify that and call it out to the key people, the key stakeholders. So who's going to be overseeing that? And that's something to think about. The next one is around status communication. So making sure that you've got a process in place where you can communicate on a regular basis to keep everybody who's involved or needs to know up to speed. So let's say you have a project manager who's managing the project, and then you've got the CEO who just needs to know how the project's progressing, what risks are there. So they have visibility on it on a weekly basis, bi-weekly basis, whatever it is that makes sense for your project. And the last one is system design. And this is about making sure that the actual design of the platform is exactly what you want. And the critical piece or point here is around including the subject matter experts. So this could be subject matter experts that are actually down at the field level or warehouse, depending on your business, making sure that those people actually have a chance to talk and see the system and make sure that it works for them. and that they can validate that it has everything that they need to be able to use it effectively. So that's an important step, and that they, along with all the rest of the key stakeholders, get a chance to sign off on the wireframes and exactly how that system is going to work prior to anything being finalized or going live. The last step is hopefully the most fun, is the implementation piece. And two critical steps here in my mind are around the testing and the training. So I mentioned how critically important it was to pick the right vendor. The next two most important are the testing and the training. And these tend to be things that people rush through. They've worked months and months and months and months on implementing this project. It's getting right to the end, and then you rush through the testing and the training. These are the most important pieces. You don't want to be launching something that hasn't been tested properly, and you don't actually have the staff that are going to be using it, or maybe your customers that are going to be using it, and they don't know how. What is the point of spending all of that money and all of that time, months and months and months, and then not being able to actually have it work for people that are going to be using it on a daily basis? So that's a really important piece that I wanted to mention. So I'll go through these one by one. The data preparation, we talked about really having a clear understanding of what data you want from the system. Sometimes there's things that you need to clean up. So taking the time to prep all of the data, testing and training, like I mentioned, making sure that that's a very thorough process and that you're giving yourself enough time prior to go live to do it effectively. Then you've got go live, which our recommendation is that you pilot it. You don't ever go live and just flip the switch. You take the time to pilot the system, figure out if there's any risks or anything that's gone wrong, and then you go live. After that, you're measuring how it's going. You're setting that expectation, you're evaluating it, you're tracking any bugs or defects and any enhancements that you want, and you're checking in with the staff that are using it. And then once everything's pretty solid, then you're transferring that over to operations. And that's where you'll need a document in place that's tracking any enhancements and lessons learned. So that if you're going to implement a new project, you can learn from those lessons. If you've got defects or enhancements that need to be done, you're tracking that effectively so that you can continue to improve the platform even after it's been launched. And then the last one is just closing the process off, and that's just about continuous improvement. So taking the time to just, loop back every, 6 months to make sure that the system is working for you the way that it needs to, and possibly implementing some of those enhancements that have been documented. So at the beginning of the presentation, I asked you to think about a few questions. How can I come up with a solution that's going to generate new revenue? How can I solve a significant issue for my customers? And if I do that, if I come up with that idea, will that solution benefit my business now and into the future? The chances are that the answer to those questions are going to require you to either adjust your technology, create a new technology, or adopt existing technology. Once you've found that solution, following a step-by-step process, whether it's the technology adoption process that we just went through today or something else, we highly, highly recommend you taking the time to think through your technology adoption strategically. If you do this, you'll ensure that whatever solution you've selected is exactly what you need for your business. And I guarantee you, you will be so much happier that you took the time to do that. We've seen it time and time again. So that is the recommendation that we're giving. And if you can walk away with one thing after today, it's to take the time to strategically think about your technology adoption. So if you've got questions about what we talked about today, it was only a half an hour, is a lot of material. We've got a lot of free articles and free information on our website. If you just go to myriadconsulting.com, the technology adoption approach I just walked through is on there. You can download it. There's lots of information around IT strategy, how to pick a technology. We just want companies to be successful in doing this. So please feel free to jump on there and grab whatever information you need. If you do have questions, please feel free to reach out to us. You can either email us at info@myriad.com, myriadconsulting.com, or just go through our website, and we would be more than happy to answer questions about any sort of technology adoption that you have. So that is it for me. Thank you so much for your attention today. And I'm going to pass it back to Mary. I think we're going to go through a bit of Q&A. Mary, are you there?
Just going to bring up the Slido screen, everyone. Okay. Okay, and
okay.
There you are. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, we had a little technology unmuting there. Thank you, Hailey. That's a very interesting thing. I can see lots of parallels in the quality field. So let's have a look at some questions we've got here. Number one, is it possible to get access to your slides?
For sure, I'm more than happy to share those. Yeah. That's more of an ASQ question probably, and whether that's from our standpoint, we're totally happy to share those.
Yeah, your idea of the Zoom cocktail party seems to be quite popular. So I think that's a very good. It's a good idea. It's also showing us how we can try and get technology to bridge things. Yeah. Oh, here's another question. Regarding the technology selection process out face-to-face, how can I know a vendor will be trustworthy? There's so much misinformation on the web. Yes, that's a definite issue, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. And I think the biggest piece is for people to be really clear on what kind of questions you need answers to. Because if you are really clear on what it is that you want and what you need from the technology, you can be asking them very specific questions, and you'll be able to tell whether or not they've got answers to them. So when you're going through a demo, you'll be able to see right there in front of you if that technology is able to do what you need it to do. And if they're being open and honest about that, then that's, in my mind, that's how I gauge whether or not they're going to be a trustworthy vendor, is they say that they can do something and then they can actually prove that they can do it. And so if they say they can do something, they should be able to show you in a demo that it can happen. So that's my recommendation with that.
Yeah, that's very useful in my experience as well. Here's a follow-on question: how do we decide on which specific technologies, right? There's so many options. As a user, you don't want to spend hundreds of hours doing it. So what's the best way, would you say, to approach that problem?
Yeah, it is a tough one because it can be extremely time consuming. That's something that we support a lot of companies with. But again, it kind of loops back to really knowing what you want from the technology in the first place. Because oftentimes when you start going down that path of looking for technology, things can be really flashy and look really cool, but it doesn't actually address the core functionality that you need from the platform. So my recommendation is to speak to people who have potentially implemented a new system. So let's just say you need to implement a new CRM system or e-commerce. Talk to other companies who have done it and are able to provide you with feedback that, good or bad, around what that technology experience was like. So that kind of narrows the field down so that at least you've got some referrals or recommendations on which technology to pick.
Yeah, that's very good advice, because I can understand it. Me, going on to the next question, I'm not that knowledgeable about technology, but when someone here is asking is, how much technology acknowledgement do you need in programming to really know if a vendor is good?
I personally don't think you need a lot. I think it's really more about your business. you need to have a good understanding about what you want for your business, and it's their job to answer those questions to ensure that you're going to get it. So in my mind, if you're going to be implementing an e-commerce system, for example, you need to know exactly what it is that you want it to do and be very detailed and document it. Think through all of the tiniest little steps of the things that you want your customers to experience, the things that you need for your employees to be able to do their jobs effectively. If you do that and the vendor knows what they're doing and has a good technology that lines up really well, then they'll be able to walk through that with you. And your technical expertise is really, you know, irrelevant, because really it's their job as a vendor to understand your business. Because if they do that really effectively, then they'll be able to implement the technology really effectively. And I think that that's it's a really important point, because what often happens is the tables shift when you're looking for a vendor. They're trying to sell their product. They're trying to sell what they do. And at the end of the day, it's really about you, and it's about your business and your needs. So you need to be making sure that you're asking those questions, that you're challenging them to do what you need them to do, versus them trying to give you a big sales pitch and probably a bunch of technical speak that's just overwhelming you. That would be my
Yes, yeah, that's, I personally have always found it very useful to take references from the company and talk to other users, because they often give you the real goods on what's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I've got another question here, and it's just, I think this applies to many of us. One company I know uses 10 different applications to do technical support and 10 different silos of information. Does this matter, or is this just the way it is?
I think that would be a challenge in my mind. Like, you know, from my perspective, when it comes to technology and all the technology projects that I've implemented, is you want to make it your goal is to make it as seamless, simple as possible. If you've got potential duplication or redundancies in technology, it just makes things more and more complex. So I personally think, I don't know the company obviously, but if there's that many different apps and that many different silos, I would guess that there's probably a lot of challenges too. Really trying to streamline your technologies and integrate as seamlessly as possible so that everything works together as one will benefit you immensely.
The next question is, I think we see this one quite often. What metrics are used to determine the return on investment in technology adoption?
Another great question. Really, again, I think it's a little bit individualistic, because it really depends on the success metrics that you've built out, because every piece of technology is going to do something different for your business. Whether it's a e-commerce, CRM, ERP, really the intention of implementing it will be different. So I think in my mind, when it comes to return on investment, it's establishing what you actually want right at the beginning. What would that success metric look like? And what is the potential return that you want at the end? So that when you have implemented it, and maybe 3 months after you've implemented it, 6 months, 9 months, whatever it is, you're checking back to see if that technology is actually achieving the success goals. So that gives you a good gauge. If you've met all your success metrics, then you likely have seen that return on that investment for that technology adoption.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess these days with COVID too, some people just had to go ahead. You know, sometimes it was just a case of, you know, do it or else that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think we have time for 1 or 2 more questions. The next question is, your 3 examples were tech, oh, they just moved it, sorry. 3 examples were tech companies, so easy for them to adjust, create and adopt quickly. What about a non-tech company? Are the steps the same for companies who are not very technologically savvy, shall we say?
Yeah, that's a great point, a great question. And to be honest, the process is exactly the same. So the company that I worked before was not a technology company; they were a sports company. But what the important piece is that you might still have that idea about creating a new piece of technology because it could really help your business. It's really about finding the partner that would help you do it. So going through those same questions about what you want to achieve, those success metrics, building all of that current state, future state stuff out, walking yourself through that process, and then just finding the strategic partner that's able to develop it for you. So whether you're a tech company or not, all of those things can work the exact same way. And I'm sure you've got really creative people on your team that probably could come up with lots of really cool technology ideas that would support your business.
Okay, I think we have time for the very last question. I don't know quite how to answer this one, but how many technology vendors commit to a return on investment?
I haven't found one. So I doubt that there would be any company that would commit to that. But you can certainly hold them accountable to the requirements that are in the contract and ensure that they are achieving everything that they said that they were going to do. That's what you can do, is hold them accountable. The return on the investment, I really think that comes down to you and how you're going to implement it with your company, how you're training your staff, all of those other pieces that ensure that adoption will provide you with a return.
Okay, well, thank you, Hailey. That's been a very interesting talk because so many of these things fall over to quality as well. It's really a very similar process, but it's very enlightening for us. And I really appreciate your opportunity to come step in and do this talk for us. And as time's going on, we'll have to close here, but I'd like to extend our thanks from ASQ Vancouver to you for your presentation, and we'll be sending a token of appreciation out to you. And thank you to the audience for their good questions.
Yes, thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Mary and Hailey, and thank you all for attending this session. We truly hope you enjoyed it. And before you all go, we'd love to hear your feedback on this. So please take a few seconds to respond to the following poll. Okay, just give me 1 second here. I'm just going to post that momentarily. All right, so I'm going to leave this up for the next 30 seconds or so, give you an ample opportunity to provide your feedback. And in the next few minutes, my co-host will post the links to the subsequent sessions, which are going to be taking place at 12:30 p.m. Pacific today. So while you're answering the poll, I can share with you that the first session, Session C, with Hugh R. Alley at 12:30 p.m., How Grade 9 Science Can Help You Rethink Opportunities. You'll find that link in the chat momentarily. There we go. And there will also be another session, Session D, that is concurrent to this next session. You'll see that link come up in the next few minutes. So if you want to join one session versus another, go ahead. And remember, we are going to be recording every single session. So if you have to choose one over the other, don't worry. We will be posting those recordings very shortly. Thanks again, everyone, for taking the time to join. And the links to Session D and Session C will remain in the chat for the next 15 minutes. Thank you.
much.